guess my biggest primary concern would probably be the condition of the youth today. I mean, everybody's so focused on what these kids is wearing and how they dressing. They're overlooking a lot of the dire situations that a lot of these kids seem to be catching themselves in. You know, when we grew up banging in the 80s, it was, it was a lot different. But today, with the information age, children have so much access to a multitude of different things, you would think at some point in time that the connection between people would be a lot more greater. So, I guess one of the greatest concerns I have is probably these individuals inside the communities who consider themselves G's, or the dudes who are supposed to be the elders, or the dudes who are supposed to be the ones that's teaching these cats the laws in the streets. At one point in time, it used to be etiquettes and principles to the game. Not to say that that you can condone at any point in time doing wrong, but at least there were principles in certain things that we did. And so now it's like it's wide open. They doing whatever they want to do, and I don't knock them. You know what I'm saying? When you grow up in poverty-stricken communities, you feeling hopeless, you feeling like nobody really cares anything about you. You're gonna do whatever you gotta do. I mean, I was hugging the blocks, running up on cats with pistols, and doing what I had to do because I didn't feel like the world cared. We have to have more opportunities for our youth. We have to have something for them to do when they get out of school. We have to create conditions and opportunities so that they can feel like there is something outside of hugging the block, selling dope, and being out here being gangsters and street gangsters. And what's the trip is that the majority of the time, 90% of the people that they're listening to off inside the hip-hop communities is doing music. 90% of these cats ain't never been in the streets. I was heavily influenced by NWA back when I was 14 years old, 13 years old. So influenced that I actually took my mom's car and drove to California trying to find Eazy-E myself, trying to get down with Ruthless Records. But my point is that, we have to be really mindful of how influential we are to these kids, how influential our music is to these kids. And so, my challenge is the majority of these cats out here who are compensated greatly, not hating, glad at the fact that they're talented individuals and they're getting money. But what are you putting back in the communities? If we don't invest in these children, then the detriment of our communities is it's really totally up to us. Or it's all off inside our hands. And so I'm looking at it like this. What we're trying to do is trying to mobilize off in the black and Hispanic communities and off inside the poor white communities as well, because really this has nothing to do with race at the end of the day. It has to do with certain classes of people. And a certain class of people means individuals in a social position to where they can't get ahead because they always seem to be just paying bill to bill just to get by, just to get by. They keep the division off inside the communities. They tell us that in our neighborhoods that because of blacks or whites or Hispanics or whatever it may be, that it's our faults. Come over here, it's a car coming. That, whites are told that blacks and Hispanics are the problem, vice versa. Well, what I challenge individuals to do is to take a good look around yourselves. Look who lives down the block from you. Look who lives in the area close to you. Are these people similar to you in some form or fashion? Because you got whites, Hispanics, and everybody off inside the hood. Poverty does not discriminate. So all I'm saying is what we need to be doing is getting ourselves off inside a better condition so that we can help get access to not just certain people, but to all people who are trying to get ahead. On the educational system, and I'm speaking this particular message to the African American communities. How is it possible that we're going to continue to keep telling our kids things like Christopher Columbus discovered America or certain things about the 4th of July? Now, I don't have any problem with the patriotism in America. I love the country. I believe that it's one of the greatest countries on the planet. But the founders of this country, the individuals that we consider to be founders of the country, had something in the Constitution that said that we were moving toward a more perfect union. That meant that the union that was created was far from perfect. And you remember at the time in 1776 when the country was fighting for its independence and saying that all men were created equal and had these inalienable rights that were given by God, that freedom, justice, and equality was guaranteed to every human being. Well, that was guaranteed to every human being except Africans. And so I find it kind of hard for me to celebrate on this particular day things that are going on in the community that had nothing to do with my people at the time. And so some people get offensive when I'm not running around, you know, popping firecrackers or whatever it may be on this day and celebrating this day, because how can we instill within inside our children, how can we continue to tell our children certain things that are not truths? I mean, if it's cool. If you want to tell your child that there's a Santa Claus coming in from the North Pole, that's your business. If you want to tell your son that you know, rabbits lay eggs, hey, that's your business. It's your right to tell them whatever you want to do. But when you tell children lies in the beginning, and then you're baffled at them when they start lying to you as they get older, you know, I mean, you started this trend off. Now, I believe the educational system, it needs to not only be geared toward teaching a universal concept of what all races and cultures have contributed to humanity. It doesn't need to be one-sided, because when it's one-sided, it creates a superiority complex and an inferiority complex off inside people. This is why you have the majority of the planet that feels like they are better because of the pigmentation, because they are light-skinned or because they are white. That they just had one on Facebook maybe like 2 weeks ago, and it was talking to the little kids, and it's been a study that's been out for the longest. And they had the little black kids off inside the room, and they had the little white doll and the little black doll, and they said which doll was the pretty doll, which doll was the nice doll, which doll was the good doll. And all the black children picked the white doll as being the nice, pretty, and the good doll. And that's because within inside the minds of these children that they're suffering from identity crisis based on complexion of skin. I mean, it's not a coincidence that if you go to Indonesia, China, if you go to Australia, if you go to South America, if you go to anywhere off inside Mexico, even off inside here in America, the darker the pigmentation, the lower the poverty conditions and stricken economical conditions. So this is something that we need to wake up about.
Can we pause?